Hey everyone, Rob Ryder, Sunday, May 27th, 2012. Um, After looking at passport stuff for a bit, had always been interested in the word domicile because it's used like 135 times in the Michigan statutes. And here's just a couple of them and why I believe it's important that we establish our domicile. Um, if you go to archive.org, put in law of domicile, DOMICIL, not the E, you'll find some books you can download on it. Pretty easy to read. Give you more reasons why you want to claim your domicile. But in the Estates and Protected Individuals Code, which used to be the probate code in Michigan, procedure to establish death of accident or disaster victim. And the procedure to establish a death or individual is an accident or disaster victim and whose remains have disappeared or are identifiable is as follows. So, they haven't found your remains yet. They're just going to establish if you're dead or not. If the accident or disaster did not occur in Michigan or adjoining waters, the court in the county of the presumed decedent's domicile. So there's the word domicile. So if the act or disaster did not occur in, that's Michigan as a state in the Republic, not the capital letter Michigan. And as we're going to find out, that's not where we've been domiciled right now. We've been domiciled in the uppercase Michigan as a U.S. citizen. And so further, an individual whose death is not otherwise established under this section or section 27 or 1207, who is absent for a continuous period of 7 years during which he or she has not been heard from. All right, so if you haven't been heard from in 5 years, you're considered dead. That goes kind of with the Sesta KV Act. And then applicable law, this part applies to the estate of a decedent who dies domiciled in this state. There's the word domiciled again. For a decedent who dies domiciled outside the state, the rights of homestead allowance, family allowance, and exempt property are governed by the law of the decedent's domicile at death. So it's really important where you're domiciled. So it's one of those things we get to pick. And there's 135 hits on domicile on that link right there. So where did all this come from? Well, I'm going to be reading some stuff that came off of the New Advent Encyclopedia, Catholic Encyclopedia. That's what we're going to look at now, mixed with some stuff from a couple of books on law of domicile. So this is what the guys that wear fish heads for hats had to say. Ancient Rome law. Before the guys that wear fish hats got involved. This is the way it was. We must therefore revert to Roman law, which established domicile as the extension or communication of pre-existent legal status of individuals, your origin. In the theory of the Roman lawyers, each man belongs to his municipality, to his city where he contributes his share to the expenses and taxes, so he has a right to a common advantage. Children naturally follow their father's condition and belong likewise to the city, even though born at a distance. So this is ancient Roman law, and it says that your domicile was dependent on your father's domicile, and it's an extension of pre-existing legal status. It's your origin. You belong to a certain municipality. And a municipality is usually an urban administrative division having corporate status and usually powers of self-government. So it's some kind of, usually an administrative division, urban size, that has self-government. But the term municipality is a generic term and can describe any political jurisdiction from a sovereign state. Such then is the primitive concept of domicile in Roman law. The communication to a man born in one municipality but residing permanently in another of the civil rights normally reserved to citizens who are natives of the locality. So Roman citizens didn't have to live in Rome to be Roman citizens. They were Roman citizens by birth, and therefore wherever they were Roman citizens. Well, you're a child of the kingdom of heaven, because as we can see, it also said, as we have already seen, domicile properly called is the place one inhabits indefinitely, the place of eternal dwelling, kingdom of heaven. That's where your God-given rights come from, right? However, we're born in one municipality, the kingdom of heaven, but we're residing permanently in another. Where are you residing permanently? Well, I'm going to say you, the spirit, are residing permanently in your earthen vessel, your body. To become as one of the later, therefore those residing permanently in another, the stranger must create for himself a domicile. And it was with that necessarily led jurist to define domicile and conditions upon which it could be acquired. Okay? So if you weren't going to be in the kingdom of heaven, but domicile someplace else, well, you had to create a domicile for yourself. The stranger must create for himself a domicile. It's your body. Right now you're a stranger. You haven't claimed it as your domicile. So this is me speaking now, since your domicile of origin is the kingdom of heaven, you have to establish yourself in a municipality in the real, in the law of men under public international law, or you will be a victim of private international law, also known as the conflict of laws. And those are all things you can look up, and you'll see that they are. So the Roman theory went away for a long time, and then it was again brought into honor in the 13th century. Imagine that. Whether it was because they mistook the real meaning of origo or desired to explain it in a way that suited the customs of their time. So now we're going to take the original definition and we're going to explain it in a way that's suited for the custom of our times in the 1300s, when a lot of this stuff is taking its final form that we're into now. They interpreted it as a sort of domicile resulting from one's birthplace. And if one were born there by accident from the place of the father's birth, and in this case the father's birth, because birth can mean a noble or high status, so the place of the father's status. Except for this inaccuracy, the Roman theory is well expounded. Birthplace is the place where someone is born or where something originates. And place is a dwelling, a house. So your place could be your body, one's birthplace. You were born into this body. And if you're born there by accident, from the place of the father's birth, his high status. So you would still have that status. We just have to claim it. But they decided to do one more thing to it. So not only did they tweak the definition, now we're going to talk about, moreover, according to the favorite principles of their time, they brought into prominence the double constructive element of domicile. So they made a one become two. And this goes all the way back to Adam and Eve. Man was created first. Eve was taken from his body. It takes Adam and Eve to make a man. Otherwise, they're male and female. Or they're both men, one or the other. So we're going to take the definition of domicile, we're going to split it in two. And now they're going to say that domicile, we're going to call it acquired domicile. We're going to modify the word domicile, give it a modifier, acquired, change it to something else. So acquired domicile has the material element, the corpus, which is habitation, and that would be like residence, and the juridical or formal element, which is the intention to remain in this habitation indefinitely. You must show intention. It matters not whether one be the owner or simply the occupant of the house. I put your body in there. In which one dwells, or whether one owns more or less property in the locality. The place of one's domicile is not the house. It's not your body. Now remember, this is canon law now. We're going to, put it into statutized law. So the place of one's domicile is not the house wherein one resides, but the territorial district in which the house or home stands. This district is usually the smallest territory possessing a distinct self-governing organization. Okay, so they took the concept of domicile from Old Roman law and they adapted it to canon law so they could put it into everything from civil law to UCC, anything to do with positive law. It's all ecclesiastic law. This is just all ecclesiastic. So now it's the territorial district, and you must have residence and intention. So just to be a resident of someplace isn't enough. What's your intention? Do you intend on staying there indefinitely? Until you tell them that, you haven't chosen it as your domicile. Residence alone is not a domicile. So we got some more modified ones now. So the domicile of origin is somewhat inexact from the Roman origio, is that assigned to each individual by his place in nativity, unless he be accidentally born outside the place where his father dwells. Practically, it is the parental domicile for legitimate and maternal domicile for illegitimate children. Well, on mine has my mother's usual residence. This is on my certificate of live birth, and it gives my mother's usual residence. And we're talking about residence and intention. And that residence is Michigan, all caps, County Bay, all caps, City, Township, Village, Auburn, all caps. So my domicile of origin by my nativity was into the 14th Amendment citizen. And I found this interesting. Again, in reference to spiritual life, domicile nativity is a place where adults and abandoned children are baptized. Well, I wonder where that happened. I'm going to say it was Bay City, which is all capital letter, which is where the hospital was, which is where I was baptized. Baptized into Jesus' death. So that's domicile of origin. Then there's the domicile of residence. So this again is for my mother, myself, all of us. Your domicile of residence or acquired domicile. Is that of one's own choice? We get to have a choice. So that domicile of residence or acquired domicile is that of one's own choice, the place where one establishes residence for an indefinite period. It is acquired by fact of material residence joined with the intention of there remaining as long as one has no reason for settling elsewhere. This intention being manifested by either an express declaration or by the circumstances. So that's how you get to choose your own, and you either do it by the circumstances or an expressed declaration. Well, I don't know how to do it by the circumstances, but I can certainly put it on an express declaration. We're getting pretty good at that. Once acquired, domicile subsists despite more or less prolonged absences until one leaves it with the intention of not returning. So we're going to establish our domicile of residence. And then finally, necessary or legal domicile. So there used to be one, there was origin, then there was domicile, now we got 3 modified domiciles. So necessary legal domicile is that imposed by law. Okay, and it's imposed by law, there's a semicolon. Okay, so it's got different reasons imposed by law. You can be a prisoner. You could be a wife. You could be a widow. You could be a child underage. Makes you a ward. All these things are covered in probate laws. But lastly, and this is the most important, whoever exercises a perpetual charge, an everlasting charge. You're an immortal living spirit. You have an everlasting charge. such as a bishop, canon, parish priest. Yeah, okay, those guys are good. So's a sovereign, so's a king, immortal living spirit housed in an earthen vessel. But this legal domicile is the place where you're going to discharge your functions. And they were talking about the functions of your office. As the sovereign, you hold the office of king. You got to have some place to discharge those functions. So in the law, domicile says you have to claim a domicile for your natural and legal person. And it will be a village, city, township, district, etc. Something smaller than the county, because all counties are subdivided. I'll show you that here in just a little bit. Residence is not enough. You have to show intent by act or deed. You have to do it. Something like an act of acquiring domicile for your natural and legal person. I did one, and I'll show you what it looks like. This establishes your political status. You are now a national standing on the land at territorial level, independent federal district, just like D.C., Guam, Virgin Islands. No all capital letter state exists, nor does the U.S. citizen. And you are not at war with the government. In fact, you love your government because your government is you. So in this Wikipedia link here, if you go to the bottom of this Wikipedia link, which is for minor civil divisions, you'll find two references. You can click them, and it will define pretty much everywhere in the United States what the domiciles are. City, village, district, township, whatever they call them. What all the political subdivisions are. And wherever your house, your earthen vessel is standing right now, when you walk out into the territory you're surrounded by, are you in a city? Are you in a village? Are you in a district? Are you in a township? You're in something smaller than the county. And this book will tell you which one it is. And then the seat of that government is your domicile. So these minor civil divisions, though, it's a term used by the United States Census to designate the primary government or administrative division of a county. The primary governmental and or administrative divisions of a county, okay? Such as a civil township, precinct, magistrate district. So those are all different kinds. And they're used in 28 states, including the District of Columbia. And 20 states, all or many of these are general purpose government units. And general is always a good word, right? It means it covers everything. And Michigan's one of them. Beautiful. Most of these are legally designated as towns or townships. The type of government may range from inoperative to weak governmental authority. Since MCDs appear in different category than incorporated places, this has caused some confusion in states where the MCDs have strong governments, such as whatever. Well, I'm in Michigan. And this link takes you to Oakfield Township as far as into this particular United States Geological Service information. And it says it's an active minor civil division, an active county subdivision that is not coextensive with an incorporated place. So this township is not coextensive, doesn't have anything to do with an incorporated place. It's its own place. And the county is Kent, the state is Michigan, and the country is the U.S. Now, Washington, D.C., formerly the District of Columbia, which formally means in the correct manner, it's the District of Columbia, is the capital of the United States. 1790, the United States Congress approved the creation of a federal district to become the national capital as permitted by the U.S. Constitution. The district is therefore not part of any U.S. state. It is formed from land. I say that's what a township is, and the country is the U.S. The District of Columbia, which is another territory, is the capital for the United States. And the federal territorial courts, so really all this is going to fall under federal territorial law. And they're rich in history, varied caseloads, dedicated judges, are a civic teacher's dreams. Their work involves power found in Article 1, 3, and 4 of the Constitution. So they get to work in all of them. Now, a lot of people question about the United States, not want to be a citizen of the United States or a national of the United States and whatever, okay? We all need to decide what definition we're going to use for the United States. And I like these out of 324 U.S. 652, Hooven and Allison Company versus EVAT, the Tax Commissioner of Ohio, where it was said the term United States may be used in any one of several senses. It may be merely the name of a sovereign, occupying a position analogous to that of other sovereigns in the family of nations. Well, that's me. I am a United State. It may designate the territory over which the sovereignty of the United States extends. Well, excellent. That's my body. Or it may be the collective name of the states which are united by and under the Constitution. So there yes, either or. You're either united by it and also those that are under it. I'm not under the Constitution. I didn't take an oath to it. I'm united by it as a United States, and I expect those who are under the Constitution to do their job. That's why we gave it to them. So, United States is a good word, very good word. Merely the name of a sovereign occupying the position analogous to that of other sovereigns in the family of nations. They just put you into the family of nations by making you one of the United States, because you're the sovereign of your own state. So more on these territorial courts. Today, the U.S. Virgin Islands is one of only 3 territorial courts. There, Virgin Islands territorial courts presided over by Article 1 judges. Article 1 judges were established in Guam in 1950 in the Commonwealth of North Marianas Islands. Okay. So what this is saying is the Virgin Islands, North Mariana Islands, and Guam all appear to be under this particular form. Okay. This is their territorial courts. And they're presided over by Article 1 judges. However, these courts are Article 4 U.S. District Courts, so-called because under Article 4 of the Constitution, Congress shall have the power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory and property belonging to the United States, to the sovereign. In respect of you, Congress shall have the power to dispose and make needful rules and regulations. Well, that's also the part that gives full faith and credit to your public acts, records, and judicial proceedings. So it's interesting, they're saying that it's Article 1 judges sitting in an Article 4 court. That's what would make it a territorial court, not the Article 1 court, the Article 1 judge sitting in an Article 4 court. The federal court in these territories hears cases arising out of federal law, including bankruptcy cases. So I think it's the bankruptcy court wearing another hat, the way they're making this sound. Their judges are appointed by the President with advice and consent of the Senate for fixed terms of 10 years. Territorial court decisions may be appealed by the U.S. Court of Appeals, the Ninth Circuit Court. Okay. But what about the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico? Because these are all different forms of independent, these are independent federal districts. Okay, so Puerto Rico's one. Well, an unincorporated territory of the United States. In 1996, federal law made Puerto Rico one of the 94 Article 3 judicial districts. Federal judges in Puerto Rico are appointed by the President and serve lifetime appointment Article 3 judges. Their decisions are appealable to the First Circuit. So in both of these cases, there's a district court involved, And these district courts, depending on if you don't like their answer, you can appeal it to the Federal Circuit Court. But then there's America Samoa. While America Samoa is also an unincorporated territory, just like my township is, of the United States, with its own constitution and representative government. It does not have a U.S. District Court. So there, the High Court of America Samoa has limited jurisdiction to hear cases under certain federal statutes such as food safety, protection of animals, conservation, and shipping. But when you go to the High Court of America Samoa's website, it says that court is Article 4 court and the highest court below the United States Supreme Court in America Samoa. So there's one court, it's the court, and then it goes to the Supreme Court. In these other two, you had to go to this district court, then you had to go to the Court of Appeals, then you could go to the Supreme Court. In this particular case, there isn't. It's just one court, and then you go to the top. This court is located, wherever it is. Interesting thing is, the judges are appointed by the Secretary of the Interior. Actually, Chief Justice. Now we're not talking judges. Now we got justice. It consists of a Chief Justice and an Associate Justice appointed by the United States Secretary of the Interior, holding office during good behavior and removable for cause. So at the pleasure of. It's not a lifetime appointment. They're there until they're appointed, right? At the pleasure of the President. Well, in this case, at the pleasure of the Secretary of the Interior. The High Court of America Samoa also has several Samoan associate judges, which sit on the Chief Justice, Associate Justice. Normally, 2 associate judges will preside, yada, yada, yada. The Secretary of the Interior retains ultimate authority over the courts. So these courts are under the Secretary of the Interior. And the thing that was different about America Samoa and why I think it's the same as a township is it's an unincorporated territory. It has its own constitution and representative government. I'm not sure if it has its own constitution or not, but it is constitutionally formed. So I'm not saying that it is, but it's just interesting that they're showing different forms of territorial courts in these. You got the kind that America Samoa has, you got what the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico has, and you got what the other 3 have. Because this said there were three courts of Article 4 district courts. Okay. So the reason I say that my township is a district court will show itself in a minute. If you were to go to this MichiganTownships.org and download this particular pamphlet, you would see something that looks like this. The typical organization chart, general law, township. And it starts with the electorate. So whoever that is sits at the top, and underneath them sits these other boards, which all being optional except the township board, which has a supervisor and a deputy supervisor. It's got a clerk and a deputy clerk, a treasurer, deputy treasurer, 2 to 4 trustees, and then it also has all these other offices. And I like that one. It has an attorney. So whoever the electorate is the one giving the orders to this flow chart, and shit rolls downhill. Auditor, manager, various departments, all of them answer to the electorate. And then here are some common township boards and commissions. So these are all by statute. And right there, district court. They hold all these boards and commissions. Very rarely they're a district court, but it says that they are. So if they're the district court, and these are using district courts here to be in the form of Article 4 courts, then I think that my township falls under the same as the High Court of Samoa. And it's the highest court below the United States Supreme Court. That's a wonderful thing to know. It's a mile and a half down the road. I just have to convince them that they are. Okay, and these are just out of the law of domicile. And so if you were to Google or go to archive.org, law of domicile, D-O-M-I-C-I-L, don't put the E on the end, you're going to find some books that have to do with this, and this is one of them, and just interpretation of the terms. In the following rules and exceptions, the following terms have the following meanings. Domicile means the place or country which is considered by law to be a person's permanent home. Country, U.S. Country means the whole of a territory subject to one system of law. Well, the United States of America, the system of law that it is under, because it signed on to peace treaties with the United Nations, is public international law. And so that's the only system of law that you need to answer to. When you claim your domicile, you no longer answer to a municipal court or a state court or a U.S. citizens court. You are now one of the United States. An independent person means he, as regard to his domicile, is not legally dependent or liable to be legally dependent upon the will of another person. Lex domicili. Law of person's domicile means the law of the country where a person is domiciled. And then means the law of the country where a thing is situated. So we want to take our person and our property and put it into a territory that's only subject to one form of law, one system of law, which is public international law, which is law of nations. And as long as you're peaceful, you're protected from the belligerents. And now that you've claimed your domicile as an American national, now this came up when, if you listen to the call with Tom, when they were down talking to the postmaster at a local post office, who made a call to somebody and said, because they're trying to figure out how to help Tom fill his paperwork out to get his passport to say he's American national. And the voice on the other end says, well, you can only do that if you're from a federal territory, such as Guam or the Virgin Islands. I'm saying my township gives me the same status. So if I establish myself at the township first, I am now an independent federal district, just like Washington D.C., just like Puerto Rico, just like Guam, just like. Nature of domicile. The domicile of any person is, in general, the place or country which is in fact his permanent home, but is in some cases the place or country which, whether it be in fact his home or not, is determined to be his home by rule of law. All right, so you're from the kingdom of heaven. You're really not from here. So by rule of law, what's it going to be? Well, by rule of law, you get to choose. It's called domicile of choice. No person can at any time be without a domicile. So your natural and legal person must be domiciled. They're always considered domiciled. A domicile once acquired is attained until it's changed. In the case of an independent person, by his own act. By your action, you can change it. You were given the domicile of your mother at birth because that's the way they did it. And in my case, it was uppercase Michigan, uppercase Bay for county, uppercase Auburn for city. I was put into the jurisdiction or the domicile of a U.S. citizen. Again, by choice, I can change it. Every person may at any given moment either has at any given moment either the domicile received by him at his birth or a domicile acquired by him while independent by his own act. It's called the domicile of choice. You mean I got a choice? Well, I'm going to act on that. You're going to have to hang on a second here. This when you cut and paste PDF pages, they take a long time to load into a Word document. Let's see what else we got here. Come on. So every person receives at or as from his birth a domicile of origin. In the case of a legitimate infant, during his father's lifetime, the domicile of origin of the infant is the domicile of the father at the time of the infant's birth. Excellent. I'm legitimate born son of God. That's where my domicile is for me. In the case of illegitimate, it's the mother at the time of his birth. In the case of a foundling, the domicile origin of the country where he is born or found. In case of a legitimate person, domicile origin which his father had at the time of such person's domicile. In the case of a legitimated person, the domicile of origin is the domicile which his father had at the time of such person's birth. Oh, hang on here. Come on, computer. Just got a few more to go, I think. But you're getting the idea, right? You got to choose your domicile, in my opinion. A domicile of an illegitimate infant or an infant whose father is dead is during the lifetime of the infant's mother the same and as it changes with the domicile of his mother. The domicile of an infant without living parents, which we don't have, they're really deceased, or of an illegitimate infant without a living mother, possibly the same as and changes with the domicile of his guardian. So I think we were given a guardian ad litem. And so we were given a domicile by operation of law because our parents are dead. They're considered deceased just like we were. We're considered deceased right now. Our children are considered deceased. We've never appeared. The domicile of a married woman is during coverture the same and changes with the domicile of her husband. Domicile cannot be acquired by a dependent person through his own act. When there is no person capable of changing an infant's domicile, he retains it until the... hang on. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. I tell you what, while we're waiting on that, see if it's going to let me look at this. Oh, I hate when it does this. Alright, hang on a second here. It just freezes up the computer whenever I try to show scan pages from PDFs into Word documents. Word doesn't like it for some reason. In fact, it may not like it so much I may have to shut off and come back to you. So hang on. Okay, hang on a second here. Alright. So I went, here's a form I made up last week called Act of Acquiring Domicile for my natural and legal persons. So on the 23rd, I, Robert Allen, son of God, whose domicile of origin is with the Father in the kingdom of heaven, and now indefinitely residing in the natural person Robert Allen Rytlewski, declare my intention to domicile by choice both my natural and legal persons in the following municipality as legal domicile to discharge the functions of my nation state. So the state's Michigan, the county's Kent, the township's Oakfield, the country's U.S. And the mailing address is 10955 14 Mile Road, 49341. And the reason I say that's the mailing address is when I'm looking at my certificate of live birth, it has the usual residence of the mother, and it gives Michigan. You know what? It won't take me long to find this. Hang on a second here. Where is that stuff at? Where's that? Where's that? My will. I'll just show you. And view, rotate. Right up there in the corner. Usual residence of mother. Uppercase Michigan, uppercase Bay, township, city, or village. Auburn. Mailing address. The street number, the street name, and the zone. Now, I don't know now, because this is 1958, if we were using zip codes back then or not. I'm thinking that you just use your zip code. So I did. And then my natural person is Robert Allen Rytlewski. My signature and seal I put right here. And the legal person is Robert Allen Rytlewski, the upper lower caps. And then I put a picture of myself right here. Image and natural person. Acquired domicile of Robert Allen. So I'm going to say that the immortal living soul, Robert Allen, has claimed this natural person, piece of dirt, as his property, as his domicile. So now I've claimed my domicile as a spirit. I'm from the kingdom of heaven, but I'm a stranger here because I'm not in the kingdom of heaven. I'm here on earth. I need to claim my domicile to be the kingdom of heaven so that my God-given rights can transfer to me. And then I said, I, Robert Allen, am the sovereign of my domain, my nation state, one of the United States as described in 324 U.S. 652. The term United States may be used in any of one several cases. It may be merely the name of a sovereign occupying the position analogous to that of other sovereigns in the family of nations. It may designate the territory over which sovereignty of the United States extends. That's really all I put in there. Those are the two I like the best. I am foreign to other jurisdictions and claim by birthright all my God-given civil rights as a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. I claim dominion over my landed estate and its real and personal property, and have included proof in the form of a certificate of live birth, certified copy record of birth, public record under seal of Constitutional Court of Record. I am an elect of the Savior, national of the U.S., and non-U.S. citizen, non-resident of Michigan. All records to be updated to reflect my status and character as one of the family of nations sovereign over my territory. This is my free will act and deed as a living man, heir to the kingdom of heaven. And so I left a spot for me to sign, as you know, I told what my signature was going to be. Now the reason I did it like this is because with this picture on here, under the seal of a competent witness, I can use this as identification as far as I'm concerned. Because when you're looking at your passport things, the things they're asking for primary identification really have just a couple things on them, right? For sure, they got a picture and your signature. And then secondary evidence, as I call it, of identification, are things with just your signature, like a library card, credit card, things like that. And so I did this, right? And then I went down to Oakfield Township and sworn to by observation and subscribed in my presence. And I had the clerk of the township be an official witness for me, because they're able to administer oaths, take acknowledgments, whether they know it or not. And after she did that, she put the seal of the township on there. Now, that township, by what it said about those district courts, the only court higher than that is the U.S. Supreme Court. And the township's already agreed with me by putting their seal on this, that I've just claimed it as my domicile. So I got done with that, and I said, well, I'd like to have this recorded, because I had this, and I had my certificate of live birth, because I'm going to say now that what this is kind of looking like, it is. All right, this is your ownership document, that whenever you decide what it is you're going to domicile, you give it to them and say, hey, certificate of live birth. This is my old domicile. I'm coming here to claim the new domicile. And so I asked her, I said, well, I'd like to have this recorded here now. Now, this clerk of the township is probably a younger, well, she is a much younger gal. She couldn't be late 20s. No, she can't be that old, man. She had to be in her mid-20s. But she said, well, I said, I don't know if we can. So really all we have here are records for land. And that was a powerful word to hear. All they have there are records for land. I said, okay, well, I said, when will I said, is the township supervisor here? Well, he usually comes in the evening. You know, he has a day job. He comes in every evening. I said, okay, I'll just leave it with him if I can. No problem. Put it in an envelope, left it with her. Later that evening, I get a call from this guy who's the township supervisor. And he calls me Robert Allen, you know, right off the bat. But he says, well, what is it you're trying to do? I said, well, I'm just claiming Oakfield Township as my domicile. That by the law, domiciles, until I claim one, I've abandoned my other one. And it was an interesting conversation that went on for maybe 20, 25 minutes. Some of it very heated. Some of it not so heated. A lot of it, him asking me things like, well, he only asked really this once. He said, are you a member of some kind of group? Right? And I said, well, I don't really know what you're talking about. Are you a member of some kind of group? And he mentioned, I said, well, I don't know if you can consider the kingdom of heaven a group, but if I'm from anywhere, I'm just from the kingdom of heaven. I'm an immortal living spirit living in this earthen vessel. It's my home, and my home is standing now in the territorial district of Oakfield Township. And by the law of domicile, I'm supposed to establish my domicile by my act or deed. And so I'm doing it with you, and I like to have those documents recorded. I said, is there a lawful reason you can't record them? He says, well, I don't know. I said, well, if there isn't a lawful reason, then you have to record them. But if there is, just put it on an affidavit under penalty of perjury, and we'll deal with it from there. But if you refuse to do that, I'm going to have to file a criminal complaint. He said, well, I don't know if I can do this. He said, what's your game? I said, I don't have a game. You know, there's no game involved. I'm just claiming a domicile. By law, I can, so I am. And so I said again, is there any, if you don't have a reason, a lawful reason for me not to claim this as my domicile, I want those papers recorded. I said, if you have a question, why don't you ask your attorney? He said, I'm not going to ask our attorney. I'd have to pay for that. He said, if I have to ask the attorney, I'm going to charge you. I said, well, why are you going to charge me? I'm not the one that has a question on the law. You do. And so he was getting real frustrated because, there's really no place for him to go. I know that unless he gives me a reason on an affidavit under penalty of perjury, I will file a criminal complaint. And he's an officer who's taken an oath of office. And I don't know if he knows how much power that seal would have down here, but again, the township is acting as a U.S. district court. So So where it was left, he said, well, I guess I need you to come down here and see me. And the first time I said that was in one of the more heated parts of our discussion, and I was kind of, I take on, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, I use it to my advantage when I can. I take on the energy level of whoever I'm talking to. We're talking quiet and peaceful, that's me. If it gets amped up, I amp up with it. I try to control it now because I used to, go to 10 or 11, and there's no need to do that anymore. But nevertheless, the first time he said I kind of missed it. And then the second time he said, I said, okay, well, that could be the Cesta KV Act of 1666, where it says, that you need to appear before a magistrate. And I know on Tuesday nights, I guess I haven't looked yet, but that's normally when they would have their township hall meetings. So I don't know if the whole crew will be there or not, but I guess it doesn't matter one way or the other, right? Either he's going to put it on an affidavit or a penalty of perjury, or he's going to record those documents. Now, for those of you who have heard Tom and others on other calls say that, they've been told that the certificate of live birth by a register of deeds is a death certificate. And they recorded it with the register of deeds at the county. But the county is overlaid over top of the territories. Territories were here first. They're smaller. And, they were here before the state was. So there's a smaller subdivision. So I'm thinking that that's where those need to be recorded. That's why I'm trying to find out. I want to see if it makes a difference if you record it at the township hall. That's where I'm taking mine. Now, I think if one of the things I've read about townships since doing this, and a lot of this is brand new to me too, so I'm not an expert in any of this, but they're the ones who collect all the taxes for all the other government organizations, institutions, whatever you want to call them. They're the tax collector. They're the tax collector for the district. And when Tom had recorded his certificate of live birth, actually it was Tom and Rich. Rich actually did it. And then they when they left, having been told it was a death certificate, and went over to equalization, and they started asking these guys, what happens when a death certificate is processed? They said, oh, you come off the tax rolls. Interesting. But for those of you that are dealing with your real estate, let's think about this for a minute, right? The Register of Deeds is really dealing in property. It has a property description, and it's not measured the same as land in metes and bounds. However, it is tied to a land patent. And I think if you were to get a copy and acknowledge it and take it down to your township hall or whatever the subdivided areas where the land records are, because this is what the secretary told me, not the secretary, the clerk, right? She said that they only have records for land there. And one of the other things I saw that I haven't really fit into this yet is on my charter bill, or one of the bills that I was looking at, it said on there where their franchise was held, and it said, guess what? Oakfield Township. So there's a lot of things happening at the township hall, or this smaller district than a county that has to do with us. And if you establish yourself as a U.S. national there in the federal district, then you'll have the status that you need to get a passport that says you're a U.S. national. That's what I think is going to happen. So stay tuned for more. I'm going to leave it there. Y'all have a great day.